Owen Bardini here/day, the Computer Games Promotion and Marketing Assistant at Manchester Met University. Would you like to introduce yourself with your name and what you graduated in?
Yes, absolutely. So I am David Emerland, formerly David Emery. I graduated doing computer games design and development in the year 2018. My tutor was Matthew Crossley, and he was fantastic. And I think he's now in charge of games or something like that. If he is, he should be.
Can you briefly tell us what your job role is and what led you to pursue this job position?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently called a client engagement manager, which is essentially a fancy way of saying I do sales. I do software sales for a company that sells alumni engagement software.
And what specific aspects of your education do you think were the most valuable in helping you get in your job in the industry?
So my previous job was the most directly influential. I worked for a company called Machinations, which were a company that sold software that helped to balance and optimize game economies and game design flows. So obviously it was fantastically helpful for that. I was a salesperson there as well. I moved on from there last year because of industry shifts, which I think a lot of people are aware of at the moment. But obviously that was hugely pivotal in me getting the role, knowing the industry, understanding the challenges of games designers and game coders as well, both front and back end, and being a salesperson helped with the sort of front facing aspect of it, because a lot of people in the industry don't have as many face skills as they do coding and behind the scenes skills. Not to say that there aren't any, of course.
How did you land your first job, and can you walk us through the application and interview process?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first job was after leaving university. My first proper job, which I had for 3 years, was in sales, and it was quite a whirlwind of things happening. I was initially looking for coding based jobs, and I got an internship doing that for a couple of months. But it didn't really work out as my brain doesn't work that way. I think a lot of people who do coding can attest that it isn't a lot of the time isn't just a job for people. It's a hobby and a lifestyle. A lot of my colleagues would go home and do that in their spare time, and come in the next day being like, "Oh, I solved a problem that I couldn't do yesterday." So that wasn't for me. So somebody contacted me in January of 2019 saying, "Would you like to come to an interview day?" If you think of The Apprentice, it was just like that. I had to turn up literally 2 days later in London, Liverpool Street. Go into a building to the 40th floor with 30 other people. We had a group interview session where we had these activities. We'd talk about our idol and things like that. And watching us was various different software providing companies slash. It's hard to explain, but there were a lot of different companies, but they were mostly based around IT and tech in some way. So obviously that linked into my past. And I got out of that 3 sit-down interviews beyond the interview day. Halfway through the day, they kicked out half the people as well, saying that they weren't good enough. So that it was very much like turn up. And then by the end of the day, I had 3 interviews. I was exhausted, and then 2 days later, I'd had all my interviews, and I had a job, and I started the following Monday. So a real whirlwind, and I ended up being in a job that sold positions at events for IT vendors, selling things like cybersecurity and digital transformation and cloud infrastructure and things like that. So the sort of link through is then that sort of tech savviness. I think I didn't really realize, I didn't really assume or think that my degree had given me a lot of knowledge in the sort of tech area, but working with a lot of people my age who had come to completely different degrees, I knew so much more than them at a basic level. I mean, I knew how computers worked, I knew what a cloud was, I knew what data storage meant, and all of that was just passively picked up while doing a more tech-based degree, and I became the tech guy of David, my internet's not working. David, my screen won't turn on, and I would fix those problems. But then obviously the conversations I would then have with the vendors, I could do because I understood at a ground level what they were trying to sell to these people we were trying to connect them with.
Were there any challenging parts with transitioning from being just a regular university student to a working industry professional?
So I had jobs prior to this, so no, I was used to the sort of 9 to 5. I when I was working briefly as a coder, that was definitely more in line with what I was doing at a uni student. They were much more flexible in their timings, so you could come in an hour late but work an hour later, and vice versa. And this was pre-COVID, which was sort of unheard of back then. Nowadays, I think it's more standard to have that more flexibility and more realistic, and I think employees prefer that anyway. They want people to work when they can and get as much done. But beyond that, I didn't find it too much of a challenge, but I definitely could see why it would be for those who haven't experienced that before.
Were there any specific skills or tools that you learned during university that directly contributed to getting your first job?
As I said before, definitely my second job. It was crucial to have that sort of insider understanding of the games industry. Without that, there would have been no chance I would have got that job. The interview process was very specific about knowing those things. The first job, as I said, the through line was loosely based on tech, so passive skills about we did in my first year we did basic understanding of coding fundamentals, and I knew what a cloud was. Again, I think just being around computers shouldn't be understated in how important that is for building up a basic knowledge. But yeah, beyond that, I think for my current role and my previous roles, other than machinations, it wasn't crucial, but definitely helped considerably.
How important was your portfolio in securing position, and what tips would you give current students about creating a strong portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely have a portfolio. The time I spent at Machinations, I obviously spoke to so many people in the games industry, and every single person got their job because of the passion that they had and the experiences that they'd done on their own time. It's crucial. I did have a portfolio, I still do. It's got my sort of modeling work on there, and it's useful to catalog and look back at your progress so that you can see for yourself how well you're doing. I don't think that should be understated, but it's crucial in this industry to have proof of the work that you've done. In the sales world, you need to obviously have an understanding of the deals that you've closed and the level of interactions that you've had and the size of the companies you've been dealing with. Exactly the same in the games industries. You need to be able to prove that you've made a challenging mechanic, or you have built, if you're doing modeling or UV mapping or something like that, that you have that experience. It's vital.
Did you participate in any internships, game jams, or side projects during your studies? And did these experiences impact your job search?
So I did my best to engage in internships where I could, but I didn't end up doing as many as I would have liked. Again, I think it's crucial to do as much as you can to experience the industry that you want to go into, and doing what you can to build out your portfolio. I wish I'd done more, and I think any opportunity that comes your way. I know a lot of people in my class did some larger game jam projects. Just getting involved, even if you don't think, oh, I'm not good enough. Being a part, you tend to be a part of a team typically, and just being involved in that and the osmosis you'll get from other people will be a massive help as well.
Looking back, is there anything you wish you had done differently during your time as a student that might have made your job searching easier?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to take this opportunity to say game economy design is so crucial at the moment. So many games, and it's such a missing skill set in this industry. Learn game economies. If you don't like coding as much, if you don't like the game's design or level design elements as much, economy is something that anybody can learn. If you play a game and you have experience management or loot drop rates or things like that, learn the mechanics of that and the feedback loops. If you're looking like mobile games, how do they keep you glued to them? What's the psychology behind that? That stuff is gold dust, especially in the current market. I wish I had learned that. I wish I knew more about that as a role, and I wish I'd spent 3 years just studying game economies. That's why because think it would have been, in the environment that I was in, it would have been so helpful.
What advice would you give to current students or recent graduates who are struggling to break into the games industry in particular?
I mean, obviously, game economies 100%, but obviously that's not going to be a catch-all for everybody. Building out and diversifying your portfolio. Any minutes that you do have spare, don't spend them playing games. Spend them learning something or understanding something about a mechanic. You can absolutely play games for research, see how a mechanic works, and then try and recreate that somewhere else. You know, if you see something in a game that you particularly like. There was a game that came out years ago called Jelly Car, and that was based by somebody who was just messing around and decided to build his entire own physics engine. Obviously, you don't have to be that extreme, but being like having a fun idea and trying to get a mechanic to work or something to work in your own time is good. And then talk to people, go to meetups. There are loads of them. I know Game Maker do a lot of meetups. I know Unity do a lot of meetups. Just meeting people in the industry. This is definitely a place where everybody knows everybody. I went to Gamescom, I went to GDC in San Francisco, I went to some conferences in London. Everybody knows everybody there, and as soon as you are in that space and people recognize you and you're going to mixers and things like that, I think a lot more opportunities will come up. Again, if you have them in the portfolio to then go, look how good I am. We've known each other now for months, and then I think that'll be success for people, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
That was all of the questions I had for you, so thank you very much for joining us.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.